Hey everybody, so every once in a while on my channel I like to do a series where I kind of try to faithfully recreate like card art and box art, or I try to do a paint job that really resembles the card art. I gotta say though, I'm not too impressed with this concept art. I'll just say my piece about this. I don't think that many people watch my videos. So until that day when, you know, the art director of Godtear watches this video, this is card art. This is what card art should look like. This is like a finished illustration. The card art that came with this game is like, it's like a sketchy kind of like concept art. If you tried to hand that off to like a game artist or something and say, yeah, this is what, you know, my character looks like in my game, color him like this, they'd be like, do a better, more finished paint job. I have a little bit of a background in game art, and I know like when you're handing something off to, like, if you were doing a video game and you gave them concept art like that, they'd be like, oh great, this is, you know, like a sketch, this is not a finished painting. Anyways, yeah, we'll get into the painting any second now. So what I actually ended up using as inspiration, well, or kind of like a more finished painting to draw on for these guys, you know, like I set up a palette. You know, you can kind of see like I have like a bunch of colors around that I want to use on these guys, but I actually ended up using another piece of concept art, like a more finished painting to draw from to do these guys, because I just don't think that they give you enough information from their card art to do a nice finished paint job. So I've already done a Zenithal Prime paint job on these guys, and if you're interested in how to do a good Zenithal Prime, or how I kind of do paint prep on my minis, I did another video about that. It's called like getting the most from like paint prep or something like that. And so basically I already have a grayscale kind of paint job done on these guys, and then I'm going to start by glazing some transparent color, just using inks to glaze on color. And the first color that I'm using is just it's a P3 Game Ink Cosite Flesh Wash, and I'm just gonna hit all of everywhere on these models that has a flesh tone with that, and then just to kind of glaze on some color and establish some general tone on these models before I actually start painting. So I haven't actually played Godtear yet. I've seen some YouTube videos really kind of talk about gameplay, and it seems like a cool skirmish game. Like, that's kind of the mini type game that I'm into these days, is like skirmish games. But I am definitely going to use these guys for D&D. Like the archer guys are going to be my assassins, and then this guy is going to be some kind of minotaur. So I'm going to go ahead and start mixing up a deep red, and I'm using that same kind of like dark brown ink, the Flesh Wash, and then adding some red Vallejo Game Ink to that to get a like a deeper kind of like a sanguine red out of it. And then I'm going to start glazing that on the bandanas and all of their shirts and stuff, you know, so they can identify each other as gangers, being part of the same gang, and of course the flag. I'm also going to use that red to do Rangosh's tattoos, and I'm gonna tone those down later, but for now I want that kind of like deep red, like fresh tattoo look, and then I'm gonna make them, tone them down later and make them look like old tattoos. Now I'm going to do the same thing with some Vallejo black game ink. And yeah, I mean, you probably get the idea by now, like how this stage of the painting process goes. We're just glazing on color to get some general tone, and then I'm going to, touch everything up and get the paint job up to my standards where I want it after I've done all of these glazing colors. But I'll show you what these guys look like after we've done just some passes of ink washes, because they're table ready. Like after you do that, when you combine doing this ink wash thing with the zenithal highlight priming, you get some pretty good results, especially if you do like multiple passes with the inks until you get them up to the right opacity. Like I'll mix game inks with Vallejo Model Air, and I've been getting some really great results doing that and getting like really good opacity and really nice looking paint jobs out of just doing that by itself, not even really fixing the paint job after that. And I'm going to do the same thing on Rangosh too. But I'm going to use some Vallejo Black Game Wash, and it's nowhere near as opaque as the game inks. The wash, it's kind of more of like a shader. But I'm gonna use the wash. I'm gonna add the wash to the black game ink to kind of bump down the opacity. And then I'm just gonna kind of like mix the two together until I get like the right darkness that I want, and trying to kind of like pin wash it into the right places. Like for hooves and antlers, I want them to be nice and dark, and for armor, like if it's gonna be like an iron, then I want it to be dark. But if I want it, but for like hair and things like that, then not quite so dark. I'm going to use that same mix to do the bases too, and it's just going to create some contrast on there, bump up those lights and darks for whatever I decide to do with them later. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to mix up a dark gray, and I'm adding Vallejo Model Air neutral gray to the black game ink, and I've had a lot of luck with this. The Model Air colors are thinned out enough so that they go on really smoothly without any issues. Like you don't need to thin them down. They're kind of the right opacity. Like you could definitely do this with, say, Vallejo, the game color, or in my opinion, or in my experience, the game color and then the model color are more opaque, and they're thicker. They're less of a runny consistency, so they're not quite as good for this step. And then like the Vallejo Model Air and the game inks just go on like really smoothly, and then you have that kind of semi-opaque color, and you can bump it up, doing multiple passes with the glazes, and I really like how these look to go for a first pass, and just to put some general tone down on these guys. But if you wanted to do this step using regular game color, or if you were using, say, Citadel or Army Painter or something like that, what you can do is you can thin down the paints using glaze medium, The glaze medium does a few things. It slows down the drying time. One, there's an agent in it that will slow down the drying time of the paints so that you can blend them together more. Two, it thins down the consistency of the paint so that you get a more of a transparent glaze. And then three, it also has like a surfactant, like a surface acting agent in it that will help the pigments sort of run into the cracks and bump up the contrast. So, and contrast is always a good thing when you're looking at little dudes on a table from 3 feet away. It makes them stand out. Now I'm going to mix up some Vallejo dark brown rust and a little bit of Game Ink Flesh Wash to get a nice leather color to go over everything on these guys that's supposed to be leather. But you can see how these guys start to look with just the ink washes, but I mean they're table ready by the time that you're done doing just ink washes. I mean you could totally use them at that point and they'll look good. But we're just, we're gonna kind of establish some general tone and then use that as a base for the rest of the paint job, just to put some color down on these guys to have something to work from and use that and build on it. So I'm going to mix in some Vallejo Model Air Yellow Ochre to give me a lighter leather, and then I'm going to go over some other areas to break up the monotony of these models so that they look like they have a little bit of variation in their ganger uniforms. And I'm going to go over Rangosh's flesh tones with the same mix just to kind of warm it up a little bit. And I kind of had the idea of painting him, like what kept going through my mind was, so first of all, he's a Minotaur, and second of all, he's what he really reminds me of is Goro from Mortal Kombat. So I wanted to kind of make him look like Goro a little bit, but keep it faithful to the card art. So I was trying to kind of give him that kind of weird, unnatural spray tan looking skin, but also give it sort of a leathery Minotaur look. Next I'm going to keep working with that same palette and use more of the Vallejo Model Air dark brown rust, and I'm going to kind of develop the leather a little bit more so that it sells as leather. But I'm really happy with how the leather came out looking on these guys. Like, I think it looks really, really good. I'm really happy with it. And same thing with Rangosh. I want to slap some color down on him anywhere where he has leather and kind of develop that, sell that leather paint job. So I'm just going to wet blend those colors together until I'm satisfied with how that looks on top of the Zenithal coat. Next I'm going to get to work developing some flesh tones, and you can see I've kind of got my flesh tones laid out there, and then I'm kind of like comparing them to the card art to see how that color matches the card art, and then I'm going to just do a light dry brush kind of over Rangosh, and well, I'm actually going to get these other guys too with this dry brush, but I'm going to start trying to develop those flesh tones to kind of match the card art. So I'm going to use a makeup brush that has really soft bristles, and the nice thing about these is that they're super cheap and they work really well for dry brushing. They're like $2 at like Target, Walmart, these e.l.f. makeup brushes. And then I'm gonna use my zenithal, use my light and dark roadmap to tell me where those lights belong, and then just dry brush on some highlights. And I'm actually gonna go around and tone down the tattoos, because I don't want them to look like fresh tattoos. I want them to look like old tattoos, and I might do something with that later, but for now I want that skin to look like, well, more like skin, less like fresh tattoo. And I like how the skin tones turned out on Rangosh too, because I think that it sort of maintains some of that leather look, but it also looks like flesh tones, like the card art. He looks like a Minotaur, which is good. That's what I was going for. And I'm going to go ahead and use the Citadel bleached bone on the bone of the skulls. I tend to bag a lot on Citadel colors, their paints, but this is one paint that I do like. Like it does make a really nice looking bone color when you dry brush bone with it. Next, I'm gonna kind of lighten or warm up those flesh tones a little bit. This is just a warmer flesh tone. It's it's an actual flesh tone too, so I like it I use it a lot. And I'm going to go ahead and get the archers too with this stuff. But it just doesn't need much, just like a very light touch. But all we've done is just that ink wash, and then just this little bit of dry brushing, and you can see like their skin tones look really good. I mean, they look really developed, and definitely a high tabletop standard. Now I'm going to go back over Rangosh and some of the other guys too, where I don't like the kind of like chalky look of the dry brush, and I want to kind of like redefine his rippling muscles, But I'm actually going to add a little bit of Vallejo glazing medium to the flesh wash, the ink, just to kind of tone it down a little bit. The glazing medium, it's going to slow down the drying time a little bit. It's going to thin it out a little bit and just, make a better glaze to go over these flesh tones. But I feel like it did a really good job on the tattoos. The tattoos look way better, and I ended up, darkening them up a little bit more even later. But I liked how this looked over the chalky kind of skin tones, and the washes will sort of tie together paint jobs, like they'll tone down your highlights and your things like that, and sort of tie things together. And while the ink wash is still drying, I'm going to wet blend a little bit of this Vallejo Fantasy white flesh into the very highest highlights of the flesh tones on Rangosh and on the other guys a little bit too. Next I'm going to do a little bit of edge highlighting and dry brushing on weapons and armor with Citadel bolt gun metal. And it looks like the video got a little bit corrupted on this. It's the only segment of the video where that happens, so sorry about that. I know you can't see that very well, but that's what I'm doing. I shoot all my videos with my phone, so cut me some slack. Cut my phone some slack. Next up, I wanted to bump up the saturation of the reds. And I was actually really happy with how they looked. I didn't really want to change anything too much. I just wanted to kind of make the reds a little bit deeper and darker on all these guys. So I went ahead and mixed some game color and some game ink, and then just made it a little bit darker with another ink. Because I didn't want to make it. I didn't want to make an opaque color. I just wanted to make it a little bit darker and more saturated. So yeah, I'm mostly just glazing on color this time around, this paint job. But I'm really happy with how these guys came out. I think they look really good. I'm actually really happy with the paint job, and they're definitely going to see some use in my D&D games. I think Rangosh, he will make an awesome looking Goristro. Even if I don't play these guys in Godtear, they will definitely see use in my D&D games. But painting with glazes is totally a valid painting technique, and you can get some really good looking results. And there's a lot of European painters that actually do this to like a professional level, you know, just painting with glazes using kind of transparent colors. So totally a valid painting technique. And I'm going to go over Rangosh's tattoos too, and just very lightly, because I don't want to make them super dark red and fresh tattoo looking at. I want to keep that kind of old tattoo look, but I want them to be more of a bumped up, saturated red. But I'm just going to kind of very lightly go over them and make that red a little deeper and darker. So I'm going to go over these guys with some of this P3 Gun Corpse Brown. First off, I'm going to do some dry brushing on Garrosh. Yeah. I'm going to get his hair and stuff, and I'm going to get his horns. And just because that's how it looks in the card art, you know. And then also I'm gonna go to work on the leather straps on his whip thing, his flail. But I'm actually happy with how the leather looks on all the other guys, just using a mix of the game color the game inks and the Vallejo game air colors. So I'm just gonna go to work on Garrosh now and get his leather up to where I'm happy with it. Now I'm going to do a little bit of edge highlighting just on Garrosh, just on his straps of his flail, just because I want to kind of bump up the contrast on his weapon, because it's huge. Like it's the size of, like, it's bigger than the other guys, their whole miniatures, his whip alone. So I kind of want to add some interest to it and kind of bump up the contrast a little bit so it doesn't look all the same, like just one continuous strap of leather. I want to add some interest. Now I'm going to dry brush a little bit of this Pastels burnt umber onto these guys' bases. So I learned something today while I was doing these little animations, these like flashcard things. Pastels is a brand name. I always thought that it was just like pastels that come in a pan, but it's like cornflakes or Q-tips, where it's an actual brand name of a product, and it's just one of those things that just sounds generic. So I like these. I think they make a really nice product. It's just ground up pastels, you know, in a pan that it makes really nice looking dirt. And you could totally use weathering pigments to do this, but these are cheap and they're a good product, and I like them. So I use Pan Pastel brand Pan Pastels. And I'm thinking about maybe sticking some grass tufts on these guys later, but for now, this is really all I could think of to do with their bases. But I like the kind of scorched earth look. I think it looks cool on these guys, and it's kind of appropriate for my campaign with my cultists and my. I don't want to reveal anything because some of my players subscribe to my channel, but they're gonna see some use in my game, and they're kind of appropriate for like how they're painted up. So that's where we're at. And I just noticed doing the video editing that I forgot to get Rangosh's little nipple ring, but he only has one nipple. So yeah, mistakes were made. Yeah, if you look at these guys, some of the archers, like if you look at where their knees are, that's not where knees belong on people either. So yeah, mistakes were made. And yeah, if the art director of Godtear, if you see this, give me a call, man. You know, I'm sorry I said that your card art was busted, but it is, and nobody can complain about my paint job not matching the card art because the card art was busted. But anyways, yeah, definitely give me a call. Anyways, yeah, thanks for watching.